Okay, so let's talk about the course. New York is not fast. And it's not fast for a few reasons. The main one being that because they wanted to, Fred Lebo and company wanted to design a 5-borough course, that meant that they had to go over some bridges. And bridges have to go up and over water and then down. So they've got like little mini mountains that you've got to climb in New York. And there's also a lot of turns as well. So let's take our friends through a tour of the New York City Marathon course here. First, you start. So if you're running this race, which I've done in the past, they bring you out to Staten Island, and you're plunked down at Fort Wadsworth on Staten Island, an old retired military establishment, military base. And you're encamped there waiting for the race to start. Similar to Boston, you're kind of in the middle of nowhere waiting for a race to start. Got to stay warm. And then they bring you out in waves onto the Verrazano, I can always screw this word up, Verrazano Narrows Bridge.
It's a tongue twister. No thanks.
Yeah. You actually start the race on the bridge. So you don't technically start Staten Island, but they count the borough Staten Island. Okay. And you start on the bridge, and it is the coolest start in running. They walk you out onto the bridge, and you're on this gigantic bridge in the middle of the city. And then there's helicopters over top, and there's thousands of people, and you start at the foot of a bridge. It's like absolutely spectacular. And it's also the biggest hill in the race. So
you get it out of the way though.
Yeah, which I actually really like.
Me too.
I'm realizing an early uphill, because you have so much adrenaline going, you just make some of that incline, and then you get to enjoy the downhill later on. It's like, again, opposite of Boston, where I think a slight downhill at the start makes you maybe feel like you're having a special day, and you give up your whole pacing goal until you make it to that second half in Heartbreak Hill. Whereas New York humbles you from the start, so it can only get better from there.
Yeah. That's at least what you tell yourself as you're going into mile 2 in Brooklyn. So pop quiz for you guys. Can you name and order the 5 boroughs you run through?
Yes.
Without cheating.
Oh. Okay, I'm going to start.
Caitlin's like, oh, I'm cheating.
I'm cheating. No. I can go Staten Island, Brooklyn, Long Island. No, wait.
Long Island is not the technical term for the borough.
Oh, Queens. No. Yes. Okay,
Queens.
I got 3. Go, Alex. Queens.
Oh, and then it ends in the Queens.
Jesus,
Bronx,
guys, come on.
Queens, Bronx, Manhattan.
Harlem.
That is
Harlem. No.
Well, Harlem is not a borough. God. No.
Was that right? Queens, Bronx, Manhattan?
Yes.
Queens, Bronx. Okay.
So it goes. So you start, technically you're on the bridge, but you're in Staten Island. Sure, whatever. We'll give them that.
Okay.
Points for creativity at the New York City Marathon. Then you go to Brooklyn. You run quite a bit of the race in Brooklyn, like basically the first half in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Then you cross over into Queens. You run in Queens for a bit. Then you cross over into Manhattan briefly.
Okay.
Then you go up north into the Bronx for like a mile. They just basically it used to be with this course, you'd run around a telephone pole in the Bronx, and like you were in the Bronx for like 5 steps, and then you came out, and they were just like, well, we did the Bronx. There you go. And then you run back south down through Manhattan and finish in Central Park.
Okay. You can tell Alex and I
twice.
are not from New York. However,
my next guesses were Tribeca, Radio City Music Hall, and Jay-Z's house.
I don't know where Jay-Z lives, but maybe. Yeah, you definitely don't pass through any of those areas. So
is there a Strava segment at Jay-Z's house, Alex?
I don't know. Not yet.
He's going to have to Google it.
We could do it. We could look that up.
Strava search it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you cross a slew of bridges. You do the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. Yes, nailed it. You do the Pulaski Bridge, you do the Queensboro Bridge, the Willis Avenue Bridge, and then the Madison Avenue Bridge as your last bridge. There's some nice, nifty, uh, clean spots that like identifiers in this course. If you're running it, it's like first 2 miles is the hardest part of the race, as we said. Then you got 13 miles, right dead on 13 miles. You cross the Pulaski Bridge into Queens. So you finish Brooklyn, like the first half of the race is in Brooklyn, basically.
Okay.
And then 25K, you cross over to Manhattan and the Queensboro Bridge, and 25K Queensboro Bridge is like kind of a notorious part of the course because it's when a lot of people feel like the race is starting to kind of wear them down a little bit. The Willis Avenue Bridge is right around like a little over 20 miles, right around 33K before you go into the Bronx. So there's another kind of like nice marker that's like a spot marathoners think about a lot, is right around that 20 miles, 21 miles. And then you run a chunk through Harlem. So technically you were correct when you said Harlem, but it's not.
It's not a borough. Sorry.
So,
Sorry.
yeah. And that's a really big chunk of the race at
Yep.
the end part of the race. That's really grindy because there's like this slight uphill as you're running back towards Central Park, which is tough. And then you pass through Columbus Circle in the final mile, and then you're back into the park again, and you finish right in front of Tavern on the Green area, a great spot of the lower part of the park. And it's a great finishing shoot. It's a special spot. So that's the course. And guys, it ain't easy. But it's runnable. I'll say that.
From a marketing perspective, it's 14 feet net downhill.
Look at this guy.
Wow.
He's
But
selling the race.
I'm selling the race, but it's the hardest way that you can get a net downhill course. A lot of ups and downs, a lot of twists and turns. So although it kind of has, I think because people tend to compare it to Boston, it does have some weird little reputation as a fast major. Though I would say that people who've done Chicago and also New York, if you're looking to stay in North America, would contest that. But it's common for people to go to New York hoping for a fast time.
Yeah, I think that the average person, like a recreational runner, like ourselves, except for Alex, because you're sub elite, but
Sub elite, baby.
sub elite. And Caitlin and I are sub elite. God, or is that like obsessive recreational? Spend too much time running.
That sounds about right.
For all of us, I think that you can run this course. You can run a good time in New York if you're really well prepared for it, and if you're willing to really relax in the first half, because it is hilly and it is twisty and turny. I was really surprised by how many turns there are, but when you think about it, it's like you're running through New York City. So of course there's going to be a lot of turns, right? To make the course make sense. But